Today I'm going to give you a brief presentation on sonnets. You have almost definitely heard of these before. It isn't just all about Shakespeare. First, let's go over the sonnet basics. Sonnets are generally love poems that have 14 lines, and they usually have a regular rhyme scheme, but at the very least they have rhyme involved of some kind, even if it's just the final couplet or two lines that are rhymed. Most sonnets, at least the original sonnets, were written in iambic pentameter, and we have a brief aside here on iambic pentameter that you don't need to worry about, so go ahead and skip this part of the video or play with your phone for a bit if you want. An iamb is a foot, which is a unit of meter. An iamb consists of two syllables, unstressed and stressed, in that order. And we have some examples of iambs. The word pentameter means each line has 5 feet. So perfect iambic pentameter would be a line that is 5 iambs in a row without any additional syllables, or any missing syllables, anything else. In practice, a lot of poems that use iambic pentameter have substitutions where they'll use a different foot other than an iamb, or they have an additional syllable, either at the beginning or the end usually. You don't really need to worry about this, but if you are trying to write in form, or if you're thinking about using rhythm and meter as part of a sonic element of your poem, the sound of the poem, maybe consider looking more into meter or talking to me more about meter. All right, back to sonnet basics. We have that iambic pentameter, and then we have a volta, or turn, in the poem, the part where we learn everything, the meaning of everything that led up to this point. And here we have Surprise Shakespeare that didn't appear on the syllabus, but it gives us a pretty good example of a volta. The first 12 lines of the poem, our speaker is saying things about their mistress that are not completely positive. Their eyes are nothing like the sun. We can imagine someone saying their mistress's eyes are like the sun, and our speaker here is saying, no, they're not. Their cheeks aren't rose, their breath smells bad. She walks on the ground like a normal human being. And then the last 2 lines are volta. So even though all of these things are true, that her breath smells bad and all this other stuff, my love for her is just as good, just as strong as for any woman who's compared to a goddess or has rose cheeks and breath that smells like daylilies or whatever. We have all of these 12 lines that say one thing, and then the last 2 lines turn it around. So when you read a contemporary sonnet, you expect it to be a love poem of some kind, and it has 14 lines. In fact, now if you see a poem that has 14 lines, you should start thinking that it's a sonnet and maybe look for some reason that love fits in. Like, how does it deal with love? A volta is also extremely common, and a lot of poets still use some kind of rhyme and meter, but it's probably not perfect rhyme, it's probably not perfect meter anymore. Now, some more advanced aspects of a sonnet. We have different definitions of love coming in contemporary poetry. In fact, Shakespeare already did this with Sonnet 130, where our speaker, up to that point, a lot of sonnets were just praising their loved one. And so Sonnet 130 is saying, no, people are people, they are real, and we can still love them. So that was already a different definition of love. Nowadays, we have even further definitions of love, as you'll see. The more advanced aspects of a sonnet would be changing the rhyme scheme or meter to reflect the way that they feel about this particular love. So if the rhyme scheme is all messed up and it sounds awkward, same thing for meter. If it's difficult to read in some way, that might reflect the way our speaker feels about love. Other things that poets do is play with the form, the way the poem is shaped on the page. You might move the volta early, you might split lines in half. Joshua Megan, another poet, wrote a sonnet that is not obviously a sonnet because it has 28 lines, but each line is half of a perfect iambic pentameter line, and the ends of the 14 lines that would exist are all rhymed in perfect sonnet form. So I didn't assign you that one, but if you take a look at the Muldoon Hayden poems in the Readings tab, you'll see some examples of way contemporary poets are playing with this sonnet form. And I'll talk more about these poems and about the Shakespeare poem in a video later this week. So again, sonnets definitely aren't just about Shakespeare. They aren't perfect rhyme, and Shakespeare was even playing with meter already in that poem. But the idea behind this and other forms is that the first thing to do is learn the basics, learn how to write something that follows a form, and then think about how you can play with that form in order to make the poem your own.